There we go. Because you were leaning like this far over. Because it's fine. So you can't see your titties in there.
Got this tight shirt. I'm trying to look over the camera.
Let's get sex. Let's get some views, boys. Let's get some views.
Now we're gonna have a weird transition where I have my hat on now.
It's not. No. Well, I'm putting the titties thing in there. You're getting the titties in there.
The internet is not real. None of what we say is real. None of what you are is real.
So, alcohol is a depressant. Alright? It attaches to receptors in your nervous system, like the chain of your nervous system. So all your sensory information has to go through that, right? So you gotta keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
It makes that signal go slower. Effectively, what a depressant does. In some way, the end result of the packets trying to reach your sensors to your brain gets slowed.
Yeah.
Nicotine, caffeine, cocaine, uppers make that connection faster.
So will you box better on cocaine? Do you play video games?
What happens when you take what happens when you take cocaine? Like that's something I've not done, but I've been told you get like overconfident, right? That's like the stereotype. You get overconfident. What's another one? You talk a lot.
But to be fair, like with the boxing thing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go on that big tangent. But like when you get all that stuff does happen to you, but you're also like a fucking physical monster.
Yeah.
You know
True.
what I mean? Like you're fucking.
Well, your brain is
strong.
sending a stronger signal to your muscles. You're actually.
Oh yeah, but what I'm
you're
saying
actually
is,
able to with less. Normally, humans want to conserve energy, so the thought of really swinging a punch as hard as you can, actually, your brain weighs that in real time. Well, consciousness smears about 100 milliseconds of space, which is kind of weird to think about.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, like, what was I talking about? Don't lose my shit.
Punching and the way your brain sends a signal, and normal humans like to say
It's a stronger connection to your muscle.
Yeah.
With less effort that your brain knows is you expending energy because it wants to conserve energy to survive, because this is all evolution.
Yeah.
This is all basic fundamentals. You actually pay a price in terms of like the anxiety of having to actually perform at peak performance. We've all heard the stories of the moms lifting their cars off their kid because that's the most important thing, and our brains are wired for that. Our brains are wired to go, that's my child, I'm lifting this minivan, right? And normally you can't exert that because your brain goes, if you exert that hard, you're going to break a bone.
That is crazy that it has to like stop us from breaking our own fucking bones and stuff. Like,
so uppers, faster connection.
makes your bones break.
Weed is a weird one. Weed goes to each junction box that sends. It's like fiber optic repeaters.
Mm-hmm.
Like the electrical impulse can only last so long in that nerve. The signal gets to a repeater box. That repeater box then says, "Oh, this." It reads it, says, "Oh, this is what you were saying," and then it sends it to the next cell.
Sure.
Right, which is all happening biologically somehow, which is creepy.
Well, I sent you that damn.
Because it sounds more like a computer working than. Anyway. So, weed basically becomes a foreman to the guy at the junction box. Like if the junction box is a toll road, he kind of comes in and is a manager, and he watches over, right? So then the guy comes up to the window, and the guy's in a hurry. He's like, I gotta get the signals as quickly as possible. Grabs the money, and then the foreman says, "Hey, can you slow down for a second? You're handling this all wrong.
You should handle it this way."
Like, let me show you how to handle this." So then he's still like just, because that's just his life. He's used to it. So he's just, and then the foreman goes like, "Okay, now put it in the cash in the drawer. Now deal with the next customer," right? All he's done is he's not even slowed the thing's action, because then he's going to grab that money again real fast, but he's going to just slow the process of him putting that cash in the drawer. Now, that's a really complex analogy, because that's actually what's happening in the cell.
Is that
there's
why
a
we can
scientific
tell things
paper
better?
that talked
That makes
about
sense.
it, right? It's that complicated,
Yeah.
that system. Like, this is not just an analogy, that's effectively what's happening.
Which makes sense because, like, on weed everything's a little bit better, and maybe it's a little bit better because we
And
can sense it
depending
better.
on the different strains of weed, which like if you've heard any like weed guy talk about like that has enough money that he buys all this expensive weed, he'll talk about like, oh man, this one strain that makes me, you know what, there's truth to that. And it's because the terpenes also bind to those receptors.
But it's the same thing on moonshine too.
And,
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
There's like, my papa used to always tell me like, depending on what was happening to the week, like they'd go and buy like a quarter of that fighting moonshine, a quarter of that sad moonshine or whatever,
Yeah.
the blue or something. And these are like old Appalachian things, you know. So I mean, that's.
But
Some people are like, man, I can't drink tequila. I'll
But-
just fucking fight everybody and then end up naked at the end of the night. So,
but
makes
like
sense.
so the Foreman analogy, the reason it's important is because these different terpenes and different strains are different Foremans with different attitudes. So they go into that toll booth, and when the guy's acting a certain way, certain ones will say like, hey, you actually need to really engage with the customer, right? Or it just arbitrary restrictions. You can imagine we've all had managers that are weird in weird ways. So like it basically just governs the way that junction box handles that information. And some foremans do this interesting thing, which is I think apparent in most weeds, but higher in the high THC stuff or whatever, where the foreman is actually like, okay, get 5 people's money at once. Like, we can just reach out the window further. You got long arms, right? So then he starts handling all this information a lot. It's efficient, but there's a lot more of it going in because we've all like been high on weed and felt like you're in the Matrix, especially like playing a video game where you can't make a wrong move.
Yeah.
You've had those Counter-Strike rounds where every time you move, it's a headshot, and it has to do with because they think this happens more when you're a kid as well, because you can actually just get into that mode as a kid because games are kind of stimulating, so it's kind of like a drug in themselves.
No, I was way better at games when I was a kid.
But like, I think it's another reason a lot of adults like weed because it kind of makes you feel like a kid again a little bit.
Yeah.
But like,
Makes me lovey-dovey.
It just makes
that's
things
what we were
better.
like when we were kids, though.
What were we then?
Every time you saw me in high school, you'd come up and you'd fake kiss me and shit.
That's because I was a big old fucking dork.
Yeah, but it wasn't just to be class clown. You weren't doing it to like get ahead.
Yeah, you're
You
right.
were doing it because you loved. You're
Yeah.
like, I like this guy.
Yeah, I love the fuck out of you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's, as an adult, that becomes kind of like weird for some reason. I don't know.
I think we just got so much shit going on, we just don't think about it as much.
Well, it's like
So-
fucking-
Well, real life's usually really serious too. So then
Yeah.
you're in this I'm a serious person mode.
Yep.
And
Well-
then
Yeah, I was contacting both of y'all trying to get some help, with some woodworking stuff I need to get done. And really, wasn't that I was pressed to get the woodworking stuff done. It was more of I want some.
it goes a lot quicker when you got a buddy there.
Yeah. I
Even
want
if
a
he's
buddy.
even if he's
Hang out.
stupid and doesn't know what he's doing and he's just talking.
Yeah, like literally.
Because then you can do it for 3 hours and it feels like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I love it. I know. That's why I told you I wanted some male bonding over voluntary labor. That's why I'm creating it.
But and not to jump straight into politics, right? Because I'm gonna try not to.
Politics. What are we politicking about?
No, like I was just transitioning from the thing where we were talking about when you're a kid and everything's kind of love based versus like serious adult mode, right? Like, I think that's kind of one of the problems with the left. Everyone's becoming an individual.
Me and my wife was talking about that.
Everyone's becoming an individual. So
The society's built that way almost.
yeah,
To get like on that basis of.
which
I
is
got
not
here, I got
inherent,
here
which is
on
not
my own.
inherently bad.
No, but like,
But-
it's changed because
Right.
it used to be like I got to the top by myself, not by just by myself, but like to benefit all those around me,
Yes.
And now it's more of this fucking popularity race of just being the biggest one, just fucking because, and it's just. So
That's a good
society's
point.
kind of built that way, and I think a lot of people are kind of.
Well, we're thrown into the sea of millions of people.
Yeah.
And you feel like everyone like, oh, I gotta be cool in this. I gotta rise above everyone else. It's competition. We're humans.
Yeah.
We get competitive. So like you end up in this state where it becomes way less about like what you do with people around you and more into like what am I doing for myself? What kind of presence am I carving into the world? So it's not inherently bad, but the consequences will be that it basically is going to restructure our entire system. Like it'll get to the point where even rural people aren't borrowing each other's farm equipment and stuff, and it's not going to be good because everyone's become this singled out thing. And it's not great.
Here's what I think.
So it's going to, at least at minimum, really displace just our global scene for a while.
Here's what I think. I think what it is, I don't think it's that, maybe it is society, but I think what it is the internet, and I think it is the usage of...
You get points. You get rewards.
It's that people are expendable now. So like, people are expendable. So most people are incredibly selfish and don't give a fuck to just tell you to fuck off. Like, how many families do you know that half of them don't talk to each other anymore and like all this bunch of stuff? But like, I feel like that happened way more now than it was back when I was a kid. 100%. Like, and it's like Tinder, it's like Facebook, it's like anything else. You don't want to talk to somebody makes you mad, somebody makes you upset. It doesn't matter. Block them. There's a million other people online right there that you're going to be right. These followers that you get, it doesn't matter if your family likes you because you got all these followers are like...
It's like one stupid Facebook meme. It's really cliche, but it works. It's really truthful. It's like, they always say, well, whatever year was the last generation of kids who went out and rode bikes after school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And those were fun times. You know what I mean?
They were crazy fun.
It's like, honestly, I feel like our generation, that 90s kid generation was...
You also kind of got your ass whipped a little bit, and you kind of like you did some ass whipping, and you got beat up, and you fucking fell over and hurt yourself, and you learned genuine life lessons that way. And now it's just...
And now it's so everybody's so shielded from anything.
Everybody, not just kids.
Everybody's a child doll. You know what I mean?
Not just kids, even adults.
And Trump's that fucking bull in the shop.
Everybody gets so fucking mad all the fucking time.
Well, the thing that scares me about the whole situation, though, is that since this isn't inherently bad, right? So this societal shift won't actually be disincentivized, right? Like before, there was an incentivization about family and community and stuff. And now, since it's strictly that, like, what I'm saying is it rewards our pleasure center in our brain more than actually, because we've all had disagreements with our mothers or whatever, right? Where you're really staunchly against what's happening. And both of you are an opposing view. It just happens. And then, but like, I can't block my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it incentivizes you to hold on to that connection, which ultimately, as a society, so like just by and large, it affects, a better way to say it, the index of how it affects small communities in terms of power potential as a whole, because you're able to borrow from each other and help and stuff. It lowers that. So, but the reward is the pleasure centers in our brain. We get those likes on the images and the videos. I mean, we're shooting a podcast. Why are we doing this?
Well,
it's to get out there because it is fun and it is incentivized. So it's this war of how much can we get away with of that while also still maintaining at least like familial bonds and stuff.
So you're pretty much playing into my theory that all acts are based out of just pure 100% selfishness. Pretty much.
I'm saying, I think it's more insidious than that. What I'm saying is that, like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, right? He built this thing, figured out how it worked.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the only reason that what Mark Zuckerberg
Zuckerfuck
is able to do that, because I get it, he built the system, but he built the system to prey on our
Yeah,
That's where I think people get him wrong. He used algorithms and then watched the growth analytics. He's a really smart fucker, right? Like, people hate on him, that's fine. I don't like the guy. Like, he should have stopped at some point, stopped optimizing.
Well,
That's what he's done.
At a certain
We
point, it's not
all
him
complain
anymore.
about Facebook, yet it's bigger than ever.
Well, the Rogan podcast just literally had a guy on there talking about this
Yep.
thing. It's like the popularity race.
And it's so big not because he's exploiting people and that's like giving him some kind of like deep state power, right? That's what everybody thinks. What's happening is, just like if you get a good enough scientific instrument that you can peer into something and get data from it, like atoms, if you can really tell what atoms are doing, you're a god at chemistry, right?
Mhm.
So they've been able to do that with an algorithm and watching the analytics back and forth to basically machine learn what gives us pleasure. That's what Facebook is.
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying.
he's made it efficient, but he didn't set out to be evil. But he got so good at it that now he's beholden to shareholders, and it's to a point where he could, using that same level of intelligence, just say, you know what, fuck this. I'm not going for the dollar. I'm going for a betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
But this is a capitalist society, which is fine. It's just there really should be. It's kind of like quantum computing. If quantum computing came out tomorrow, they could just go into your bank account. Like, that's how strong a quantum computer is.
Did Google just discover quantum computing?
Google's working on it. I don't actually bet
Quantum superiority is
Right.
what they've gained. Something like that.
I still think it's supposed. I don't put a whole lot of weight into it because I've been watching CBS.
Because I heard about that they've done it a couple months ago, and I felt
Well,
like
they've made
I was like,
qubits.
man, if it happened a couple months ago, we're pretty much
Well, they've made qubits
behind.
because I've been sticking up with it. So they made qubits, which is, if you think of a CPU as like having 1,000 megahertz in a computer, right? Like, I think most of our phones run at like 1.2 gigahertz, which is 1.5 million hertz, actually, not 1,000. That's a couple decades earlier. But so a qubit would be like saying I've got 100 megahertz of computing power. It's how many cores the processor has, effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a normal processor, you get zeros and you get ones. It's a gate because it's a literal transistor. There's an electrical pulse that happens or doesn't, and when it happens or doesn't, there's two gates behind that have varying functions depending on what the input is. Okay, that's how computers work. So fuck, what was I talking about? Shit.
Quantum computing.
Okay, so the quantum computers, they operate, instead of, people say, oh, they can be zeros, they can be ones, or they can be a combination of both, right? But that's really kind of surface level. Like, if you look at a quantum state, it's a field of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about millions of possible states. So one core can be like millions of cores because it has all this extra horsepower tied to it. In terms of what it can do, it's slow right now because each qubit is like a transistor, I think. In the
Well, we
system.
can't even use it.
So like, we got computers with trillions of transistors. This thing is maybe like 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, we're talking about quantum mechanics, which still isn't answered. And in Stephen Wolfram's view, they could have built a system that simulates what a qubit could do, but it wouldn't actually be a qubit because he thinks maybe a true quantum qubit is just a black hole.
So what if they don't? What if they make a real one?
If they don't, then
And we're all
they'll build a computer that just operates in a different
That
way.
is a black
and it
hole.
will be novel, but I don't think it will have the impact of the hack straight into your bank account, which gives me a little bit of sleeping at night.
Yeah, but I'm more worried about the fucking fact that this thing could be a black hole.
Let it happen.
Well, okay.
Let it happen.
No, that'd be terrible.
Let's. You got kids. Like,
Fuck that.
I forgot.
Not even. Let's just say hypothetically I didn't have children. I wasn't married.
All right, listen.
That would be a terrible.
If we gotta go, what cooler way is that we sucked ourselves into a black hole?
what cooler way?
Yeah. Tell me a cooler way.
An apocalyptic
if it'll-
Armageddon between heaven and hell.
I mean,
That's a pretty badass way to go down.
yeah, but then we didn't
Or
start
even if
that.
you-
We didn't
even-
do that. though.
Or even if you look at like
I want to do it
pagan
myself.
mythology. If you had like Ragnarok happen and you just fucking everybody who's already dead and everybody who's gone to heaven.
I like the idea that we flip the switch.
Well,
We flipped the switch on accident. Like, the guy was like, all right, guys, are you ready? Like, one alarm goes off. It's like a black hole alarm. Like, they had it. It's like, if it's a black hole, we're all fucked. Because you know they drive.
you overclocked
They
it.
get later, he's just over in the corner. It's like, fuck, I forgot to fucking switch the.
The black hole off. I didn't turn the black hole off.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll help you sleep at night, but I don't. When he talks about it, this is where it gets spooky and where you're thinking like, oh, I can't get deeper than that. When he talks about it, he thinks because he has representations of these things, right? Because that's what his theories allow him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so he can make a mock simulation of something, even if it's not 100% scientifically tested to be true. He can kind of be an Einstein for a second and just try it. Let's just see what happens, right? And in his view, what he means when he says it's a black hole is that where these qubits are so small, they're basically like atoms that are acting as transistors, right? And that's why they're quantum. Is because atoms behave in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just hijacking that power to do statistical analysis, basically. It's kind of like a statistical machine.
I mean, yeah.
It's like an uncertainty machine or something.
Fucking.
But like, the problem is, if a part of his theory is creeping up on it, he's not announced it, but if he announces it, it's just gonna blow my mind, is that particles themselves are just black holes.
Yeah, no, I was watching something. Did you tell me that? You might have sent me that or something.
So what if particles are just black holes of certain sizes, and they just orbit each other, and in that orbital motion creates basically what an atom is? Because we can't actually see inside an atom.
So the atom, like, the rotation of everything in the middle of it, just like our galaxy is a fucking, like, black hole.
What I'm saying is maybe the galaxy at large
It's just an
is
atom.
the system as it's evolved.
Oh, fuck. And there's, like, tinier systems throughout.
And the systems that we are just really tiny black hole systems interacting with each other in a way that all those rule sets where he talks about how reality is just these
That makes
rules interacting with each other,
so much fucking sense.
that the black holes are actually just rotating, creating those rule sets, and that's what we are, is those rule sets.
So this continues on agnostic.
Now, he hasn't said that, but I think that's where he's going. I think I've latched into it.
What?
Stephen Wolfram. I'm calling you out.
That's
Conspiracy theory redneck here. I think I figured you out before you could do it.
Black holes on black holes.
You showed me how to do it though.
Here's
so
the
like,
problem
like
with
you
all
get the
these
Nobel Prize winner.
theoretical things is it's exactly that. It's theoretical. Like, I get that there's a lot of proven sciences coming out of theoretical science. Theoretical science is a valid field. I'm arguing that by any means.
David, because I know where you're going. Just to interject just for a second.
Okay.
Do you know what a result when it says it's 5 sigma? Do you know what that means?
No.
That means the odds of it being provably wrong are 1 in 10 to like 28 or some shit, some incredibly large number. They've basically error checked reality in such a way that if they're wrong, it means every single point in that measurement system, whatever they're using to measure, had to be wrong at every single step in all these thousands of different checks and balances. And then that's when they say we have a 5 sigma result, right? And that's what the scary thing to me about science is. Like, it's easy to be kind of think of them as like aliens. It's like this, it's an unknown. We know a little, right? But we're not there yet, right? It's easy to say like, oh, well, they'll come out and do kind of physics in 10 years. But the amount of measurement that we've reached, because everything's exponential in the society, has reached the point where they can really actually say, no, oh, this is how reality works. It's gotten that scarily precise. You know, the gravitational wave detection, the reason that was so significant and it actually made news everywhere and was on like actual mainstream news was they were able to measure this thing with 2 interferometers that are a kilometer long tube where they shoot a laser and they bounce it off a mirror back and forth, and the 1 kilometer tube shifted by the fraction of 1/1000th of the width of a proton. And they were able to accurately measure that, and not just do that, but from that data alone, point to where the event happened in the sky. And they saw it happen afterwards. That's how scary a lot of this science stuff. That's why I get addicted to it, because it's so compelling. Because it's like, it really feels like you're riding the razor edge of truth, right? And I don't mean that to demean any religion, because there's still room for stuff to be unknown.
See, the thing is with me, as far as religion goes, is there's a lot of things that the reason why I don't go to church is because of a lot of my beliefs. But
I mean, I would say that I'm spiritual in a way.
well, and I think a lot of people are. I think that's probably what the vast majority of people are.
Like, you feel like there's something more.
Yeah.
Because it's just what it feels like.
Yeah, and I really, if I'm being truly honest, it gives me more comfort to be like, this is what's waiting out for me. You know what I mean? Because you never know. Yeah, because it could be fucking absolutely fucking shit.
I look at it. Well, I look at
the
it.
Mormons could be right, and we'd be like plants on some fucking alien planet.
Well, I look at it in a weird way, in the sense that, like, instead of it being like we have a soul and it like gets transported somewhere or something, right? I like to think of it as like, we're just atoms and we're a system, and we're currently experiencing, because we have like this brain, this sensory organ that's made out of stuff, right? Like, when we die, like, maybe there will be another experience that somehow you get tailored into. Like, maybe you get, I'm not saying maybe like reincarnation, but something similar where you turn into something different. And we just can't measure what that is.
I think it's crazy when you say that, like, all life is just, it's just something that just happened, an occurrence. Like, just random set of events happening.
Mm-hmm.
So if you view it in that way, if you just view us as being, because for the most part we are just a fucking trillions and trillions and trillions of separate organisms living in a colony that produces all these things for them to live, and our sentience is just a random byproduct of that.
I think
that's mind blowing.
Here's what I think that.
But what I'm saying is think about the odds that would have to happen.
Well,
I think that if this isn't a simulation,
You get Alpha Sigma out.
which I think it could be a simulation. I think that if there is a God, what's stopping God from just making this a fucking simulation on a computer, or what's stopping him from doing that? But if it's not a simulation, what I do think it is, after you die, what I think what happens is, what was it like before you were born? Do you remember what it was like before you were born? No, because there was nothing.
Exactly.
And I think that's what it is after we die. I think before we're born is the same as after we're born.
We all have a mutual friend, I'm not going to say his name, but, we went to elementary school with him. He had a bowl haircut. That's all I got to say. I hung out with him a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, but he used to have the biggest fear of death as just being completely surrounded by black, not touching anything, nothing, not being able to tactilely feel anything or anything, just running in this infinite blackness. And I tried to tell him, I was like, look, because at that period of my life, I was atheist. I was like, look, dude, that's it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing there to process anything that you're imagining right now. It's just no white noise forever, nothing. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like it's the exact same as it was before you were born. I don't think that there's
There's nothing I don't fear.
Unless, I'm not saying I know that, but if it's a simulation and I wake up and I gotta go to I'm like, why'd you play this game?
But the
Motherfucker,
thing is that having that gives you a really good mechanism of not having no fear of death. You know what I mean? Because
I'm not afraid of death, though.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's because of that mentality you have. It gives you people who, like I used to be the same, atheism. I used to be there. Things change in my life.
Well, I used to be super Christian.
Yeah. Well, I know that, but I'm saying right now, I used to be there.
Yeah.
Now I'm not. But I think I stole a little bit of that idea of just like, at the end of it, it doesn't matter.
Either way, yeah.
Either way, it's rather, in my beliefs, I did everything I did was good, and I lived eternal happiness. which would be fucking awesome. Because if I'm right, where I think I'm going, and God's gonna be like, look, dude, you just didn't do it good enough. You're going to hell. Tough shit. I mean, who am I gonna argue with that guy?
I mean, you can't.
Who? You're wrong, God.
I'd be like,
Yeah,
well,
I argue with that.
listen. I did what I could do with the tools you gave me, motherfucker. Look at this. Look what you did to me.
Well, that's
like,
what
look
the
what's
Jew,
happened.
the
you
Jew,
know?
the or not
The Jew.
the Jewish book.
Yeah, the Torah.
The Torah. In
Yeah.
the Torah, they tell you to seek the truth.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Well, the Jews don't believe in hell. They all think that they're chosen people. They all think that they're going to heaven because they're the chosen people. Like, that's what they believe. So, to them, death to them is just like, you know, we're going to heaven. Like, oh well, like, you're a Jew. You don't have a choice.
and I'll say something.
You know?
Fuck Israel. You know? And it's got nothing to do.
Hot take. Fuck
got
Israel.
It's got nothing to do with
Them being Jews.
Jews,
Yeah.
by no means. It's the fact that in fucking USS Liberty, when they attacked it, like, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Like, because 10 years before you guys attacked US Liberty, we said, hey, we're going to give you $5 billion for defense budget.
Oh, I didn't know that.
10 years after that, the USS Liberty happens. And it's like, and then we continue giving them fucking money. Like, no, I've been like, no, that's it. We're done.